what is an maladaptive behavior? Let us define maladaptive behavior. So maladaptive behaviors hinder adaptation, adjustment, and participation in life. They aim to relieve stress but often cause more distress over time. Due to some physiological, biological, or environmental problems individual face, stress or behavioral problems. To subside them, individual adopts certain behaviors which will intensify his issues. So all these things we will discuss. Before that, what are the signs or symptoms of maladaptive behavior? We'll try to understand them with the following simply described sentences. Avoid stressful or unpleasant situations. Engaging in elaborated daydreaming instead of real life interactions. People doesn't, go out and move, mingle with others rather than they daydream, thinking of something or sleeping continuously, or they won't be able to do anything properly other than sitting and relaxing or dreaming about something. Similarly, suppressing true feelings. You get some feeling, but you don't express it. Instead of that, you show something else. Self-harming to cope up with distress, outburst in anger. You have some feeling, you can't express it, but you show the anger. So overreacting to soothe anxiety, using drugs like alcohol to manage emotions, etc. Now, withdrawing from the uncomfortable social situations. I've presented few scenarios here. Anyway, let us go in depth, then you will understand most of the topic. So, in continuation with the introduction, understanding maladaptive behavior. What is this all about? Behavioral science offers various perspectives to explain maladaptive behavior. Purpose of the purpose sorry Purpose of perspective is to they help organize observations, data, research, and by which we can plan treatment approaches. So perspective has a package sort of thing, lot of observations organized in a sequential order, then data put together and analyze that. Based on that analysis, you will come to a treatment approach or process, whatever it is, adapted by different individuals for different individual. So why so many approaches we need? Because we can't rely on one perspective. If you rely on one perspective, there are chances we may neglect other alternative perceptions or interpretations also. So that is the reason we need many, or whenever there is a need for something different, always psychologists or theorists or physicists or biologists, they derived new perspective based on the advancements in their field. So we will, based on theoretical perspective, abnormal psychology has evolved over centuries. It did not happen overnight. Over centuries, it has evolved. Similarly, scientists and psychologists and physiologists, behaviorists and cognitivists have developed specific perspectives. So, what are they? First, we'll understand abnormal psychology in theoretical perspective, history and evolution, then biological illness. Based on biological illness, there are perspectives. Infirmity, people not able to adjust to the moral situations or not able to adapt to the surroundings. So that was causing maladaptive behavior. Similarly, unconscious mental processes, behavioral viewpoint, uh, then socio-cultural viewpoints, then bio psychosocial viewpoint. It's an integrated approach. Uh, Similarly, the key developed perspectives by different individuals will understand the developed perspective, uh, biological perspective. Advancements in biological perspective has created a perspective. Then psychodynamic perspective, most famous psychologist you all know, who is a psychoanalytical theory and other things. Similarly, behaviorist perspective and a cognitive and humanistic existential perspective, community cultural perspective. So these are all the different perspectives, which very clearly you can say that psychologists, not just psychologists, there's so many history of perspectives. Perspective is a viewpoint. To simply say, it's a viewpoint of an thought process or a school. Now, what is maladaptive behavior? Again, they'll try to once again. Yeah. So it is a disruptive, dysfunctional behavior preventing adjustment to situations. Disruptive, dysfunctional behavior preventing adjustment to the situations. Individual not able to cope up to the present scenario or situation. So they try to avoid that situation or scenario, which may cause them uncomfortableness. To subside that or to soothe that, they get used to some sort of they try to use some means which can increase their problem or worsen their problem. For example, substance abuse to manage anxiety and depression can also worsen the problem. They may get addicted to alcoholism or smoking. There's so many things, which they get used to it. So after some time, they will never get, uh, uh, the same type of excitement. So they increase the quantity of taking in. Quantity increases and they get into trouble. Then avoidance behavior, like skipping, challenging social situations may ease immediate anxiety, but prevent personal growth and lead to isolation. So when people start isolating themselves, to avoid a social situation, or person is avoid, or a children or a child whom teacher asks to go perform something on the stage, they get due to some reason, it can be any reason, they try to avoid it because they feel anxiety or stress going onto the stage. Unless and until teacher helps him to come out of that situation, they avoid themselves or they isolate or they even skip the school. In a results, there are so many repercussions will be there in the future. Similarly, scientific theories on maladaptive behavior. So the first one, as we in historical perspective, biological perspective is the first one, where brain behavior relationship. It talks about brain behavior relationship and hereditary and genetics. So in biological perspective, maladaptive behavior is linked to bodily problems. That's physical problems. It can be inside or which cannot be seen directly. And in this, behaviors where they said, behavior genetics, they say affects the genetic inheritance on behavior. They said, this particular behavior is inherited from the genetical. So that is the reason this is happening. So biological perspective says something like that. Then after that, psychodynamic perspective has came into existence where it was emphasizing thoughts and emotions as a key driver of the behavior. And we'll explore in depth about all these things. the next coming. So biological perspective says, when it gained, importance in 18th and 19th century, where there was advancement in anatomy, physiology, and genetics. Here, the core idea of biological perspective was they were linking physical with the behavioral disorders for biological causes. Biological perspective viewpoint was, linking physical with the behavioral disorders to biological causes. Similarly, and the modern insights, now they say research supports the role of biological factors in some mental conditions too. And what is the viewpoint of maladaptive behavior? In extreme biological points, in extreme, all maladaptive behaviors are attributed to disorders by structure or function, how the body structure is there and how it functions. So all the maladaptive behaviors have been said that they are all related to body structure. This structure includes all genetical, endocrinology, all these things. They said all these things are involved. So they said, what causes inherited defects or injuries? Inherited means they may say, it is like uh, genetical, hereditary, all these things. So injury can cause, a defect to that particular part or inside, which is causing that behavior. Infections, viral fever can cause infection if not treated in time, or temporary physiological malfunctions. A person is hurt, or something happened, and he is not able to uh, uh, you know communicate with the group or something for some time, and slowly he started adapting to the isolation or different behavior starts, and he will isolate himself in many ways. So something like that, these people clearly showed that yes, biology is most important. This is how person is behaving due to the reason of defects, injuries, infections, and temporarily physical malfunctions. So, what is the moderate biological viewpoint says here? It says, they recognized multiple causes that includes body disorders. It is not just, you know, genetical. Even the hormonal deficiencies can, lead to body disorders. Then psychological functioning, his adjustment to the situations, shyness, anger, so many things. Okay, social environment is nothing but uh, unemployment or lack of work, which can lead to maladaptive behavior. Now, to elaborate them, I've given what how biological perspective has influenced other things too. The core factors involved in this are genetic factors, brain and nervous system, endocrine glands. In traditional view, mental disorders as a disease with cognitive, emotional, and behavioral symptoms. So, what does it say? In biomedical breakthrough, general paralysis linked to syphilis of the brain. Paralysis is nothing but it's sort of a weak muscle coordination, or you can say paralysis, partial paralysis, reinforcing the biological process. So this was linked to brain, and this behavior or temporary paralysis or permanent paralysis was linked to brain, and this biological perspective was reinforced because of this particular thing also, causing mental disorder issues in central autonomic nervous systems or endocrine system. So endocrine system where a lot of hormones are released. They communicate entire. They are the messengers. So malfunction hypo or hyper release of any of these glands will lead to maladaptive behavior or maladjustments to the situations. So issue in the central nervous system or autonomic nervous system can lead to these things. Early disorders linked to brain tissue destruction. That is, when an individual gets a brain stroke or something like that, then they get tissue damage will occur, and due to which depression can be occurred. That is what earlier disorders are linked to brain tissue destruction. Most disorders arise from biochemical imbalances, not neurological damage. So, in general, most disorders are arise from biochemical imbalances, not neurological damage. So that is the reason I've presented this image, biochemical imbalance, where lot of hormones are released. If imbalance is there, maladaptive behavior chances are more. So relevant biological factors, what does it say? Neurotransmitters, as I said, messengers, neurotransmitters, and hormonal imbalance, genetical vulnerabilities, and temperaments, brain dysfunction, and neural plasticity. Where, the if the communication between the neurons is not happening properly, ganglia, synaptic uh, where, one second, this is the area where the communication is not happening properly, or the calcium channel blockers are there, or positive, these things are not properly happening or communicating. So plasticity occurs, and maladaptive behavior or disorder can occur. Now, transformed understanding, this impacted, these findings impacted the perspective. So it transformed understanding of the behavior and mental disorders, emphasizing biochemical and innate factors in normal and abnormal behaviors. As you know, these are all neurons, how communication happens when this synaptic nerve communication, if it is not happening properly or not communicated properly. So there are chances disorders can occur. What is psychodynamic perspective? Psychodynamic perspective, uh, the core idea of psychodynamic perspective is, thoughts and emotions significantly influence behavior. Observable behavior uh, stems from the internal psychic process. They said, no, whatever is observed externally, it is happening from inside, not the outside. Internally, something is happening, so his behavior is what we see. So there is no proper evidence, but still, they said internally something is happening, but what is happening, we are seeing that is has been described. So shaped by internal and external factors with focus on internal ones. Mostly, they said it is shaped by internal and external, but mostly focused on internal ones. So Freud contributed mostly by Freud. So psychodynamic perspective is by Sigmund Freud. Believed all the behaviors could be explained by bodily changes, but focused on psychological factors due to limited biological. He doesn't have, lot of biological information at that time. So he said, all the behaviors could be explained by bodily changes, but focused on psychological factors, psychological factors due to limited knowledge. So uh, limited biological knowledge. So analysis, Darwin, he was influenced by Darwin, and though based on that, he said analysis of behavior requires examining preceding thoughts and associated emotions. Whatever we are seeing are happening or associated with emotions which are inside or suppressed. So what is the key concept about this? So they said inferencement. What is the key concept involved in psychodynamic inferences? Inference method means guessing based on the previous knowledge or information they used to guess. So thoughts and feelings inferred from behavior as they are not directly observable. Thoughts and Feelings are inferred or guessed because of the behavior. This is what happening. So he is, or he may, or she may thinking like that. He is feeling like this. That is the reason he is behaving like this. This is what they said. Now, how it is historically, it is this particular approach, that is psychodynamic approach, is the oldest and most renowned psychological model. Even today, most of the psychologists use this, apart from using the latest technologies. So, behavioral determination rooted in underlying psychological forces from early relationship and traumatic experiences. What does this psychodynamic perspective says? Behavior is determined by childhood relationships or early relationships and traumatic experiences, the traumas which they encountered prior to this behavior. So let us check some examples. So as I again tell the core idea, then give an example so that you will not forget anything. So thoughts. What is the psychodynamic perspective? It says thoughts and emotions significantly influence the behavior. So look at this individual. Why he is not able to adjust to the situation. So he's stressed or tensed, not able to make any decision. So feeling anger or suffocated, stressed. So let us see with some example. A student feeling anxious before an exam maybe may avoid studying, driven by fear of failure or self-doubt. He may self-doubt about his capacity, caliber, because he thinks that he will fail the exam. So he will avoid studying. Whenever he sees a book or listens about anything, he get tensed or stressed. So similarly, what is the observable behavior? Observable behavior stems from internal psyche process. What our thoughts are going inside. Due to that, he is behaving like this or she is behaving like this. So what is an example in a person snapping at someone in frustration may be suppressing deeper feelings of stress or sadness. Now, personality influence. Internal factors. A shy individual avoids social gathering due to an inner fear. As I already told you, if individual uh, uh, shies away of something, he doesn't want to involve with anybody. So what does he do? He avoid meeting anybody, right? Suppressing feelings, shyness. So he will isolate himself, go into the room, lock himself, and once that particular event is over, then they may come out. So actional factors, a supportive teacher, can help the child to come out of this by helping child to gain confidence. Like you can see, bringing all children together, encouraging them to collaborate, communicate, and educate them with her wisdom. Now, what is the Freud's contribution here? Behavior explained by bodily changes. Someone feeling lethargic may have physical conditions like hypothyroidism, but also experiences feelings of hopelessness, tried to their, which is tied to their health. They say hypothyroidism, he said, this can be there. At the same time, tried to his health also. So, psychological fact for what focuses psychological focus is that limited medical knowledge in Freud's time emphasized emotional struggle instead of underlying biological. At the time when medical advancements was not there, Sigmund Freud, he always said, emotional struggle instead of a underlying biological causes. He said, he's struggling, emotional struggle, so much involved which is going inside. That's what he said, rather than talking about biological causes. Now, few more examples. Darwin's influence on Freud. See, examining proceeding thoughts in this second slide, you would have heard this. So I'm reiterating all these things with in-depth explanation. Yeah. So, examining preceding thoughts. A person procrastinating at work might reflect on their thoughts of inadequacy before addressing the behavior. So instead of working, he always thinks this, I'll complete that work sometime later, or always thinking but never completes anything. So, oh, sorry, one second. So, similarly, exploring deep emotions, a friend withdrawing emotionally after a breakup might have been lingering sadness or fear of vulnerability. So, inference method says, thoughts and feelings are inferred from behavior since they are not directly observable. So, a child throwing tantrums might be as signaling they feel ignored or frustrated. If you see a child continuously throwing tantrums, shouting, or doing something which is odd, mother may, because they have the feeling that they have been ignored in the family, or some sibling is there, he feels or she feels that mother is not paying much attention to me, father or mother. That can be anybody. Similarly, historical significance of a psychodynamic approach is it's a oldest psychological model. Uh, uh, then early behavior determination, how it is determined. Early relationships and traumatic experiences. Child neglected in the early life may struggle from trusting relationships in later. A person avoiding crowded places might have historical history of trauma tied to similar situations. Now, what is that conscious, unconscious, or pre-conscious I was talking about? If you take an example of an iceberg, Sigmund Freud's iceberg theory, uh, divide this iceberg into three parts, in which one side superego based emotions or whatever it is. See the other side, id, sorry, id and ego. See, just there is a line which is break even point, you can say. Here, conscious level where the relations are consciously made, pre-conscious and unconscious. Here you do it unknowingly, you do all these things. For example, sexual desires, fears, violent urges, selfish needs. Similarly, superego is what uh, deals with morality. So need for love, avoidance of guilt, etc. These things are suppressed here. Similarly, in pre-conscious level, where it awakens morals, values, ideals, etc. Memories, logic, thoughts. I'll explain all these things in next coming slides. If unconscious, what is unconscious dynamic? It says the concept about conscious dynamic is that behavior is influenced by unconscious forces, conflicts, and instincts. Unconsciously, these things will happen. So, what is that? I'll give an example after completion of this. Okay. So, conflict resolution. Resolution means behavior arises from resolving internal conflicts between desire, id, and demand, that is superego. So, imagine I told you, we divide a break-even point. Iceberg is divided into three major parts. One side is superego, unconscious, preconscious, conscious. Similarly, ego, id, conscious, unconscious, and preconscious. So now psychological causes for abnormality. What does it say? Abnormal behavior is due to psychological, not physiological causes. Now let us look into an example for each and everything. A person who dislikes their boss might unconsciously express this as a constant forgetting important task related to work. He always thinks, he forgets, he doesn't like his boss. So unconsciously, these things happen. Express that, I forgot it. He don't like his boss. So he is showing an excuse saying that I forgot it. I don't know it. He don't want to do that work. So that things happen unconsciously. Now, conflict resolution behavior arises from resolving internal conflicts between desire, that is, which is there inside, desire, id, and demand, superego, right? Choosing uh, to resist eating junk food despite carving because health concern reflect this inner conflict. So he will not eat junk food because his moral says, eating junk is bad. but he is carving, right? So choosing to resist eating junk food despite carving because health concern reflects this inner conflict. So he is carving, still you don't want to eat. So this conflict is arise, that is id and superego. Similarly, psychological causes for abnormality, abnormal behavior is due to psychological, not physical causes. So chronic anxiety stemming from unresolved childhood fears rather than physical illness. So pay attention, this is very important. So id, ego, superego. Weak ego. What does it mean? A weak ego fails to balance the id, that is the instincts, and superego, moral standards. So let us try to understand with an example. Someone who gives into every carving might lack an ego. Whatever, every time, whatever you see or he, immediately they want it. Ego, an ego strong enough to mediate between their impulses, that is id, and societal explanation. Expectations. So weak ego, then automatically it is very difficult for him to control anything, right? So if it is unchecked, what will happen? The id dominates, leading to impulsive and self-destructive behavior. Person stealing money for impulsivity or satisfying a desire for instant gratification. So he steals money or to buy something, or uh, there are some people who don't want they got a lot of money, but still there it is prevalent and they steal things, and sometimes even they are caught sometimes, and they face consequences. So when id is dominating, nothing will work there. So when id has to be checked properly. Now coming to powerful superego. Powerful superego. What if here also you'll have conflicts? So what is this concept? A powerful superego says overly restricts the id, causing guilt and anxiety. So automatically, what will happen? If you are continuously restricting id, then that will cause guilt and anxiety. So try to understand with an example. Someone who refuses to take a well-deserved vacation due to constant guilt about not working hard enough. So even no, that you don't know, that person doesn't know that he is doing well. He has done excellently and he needs a vacation, but he thinks he is not working enough to take that break. Even somebody tells you, no, 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 I can't, I'm not doing well, I have to do it. So his super ego is overly restricting the. So automatically, always he thinks I'm not working properly. I have to work, 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 work. So conflict arises. Anxiety is always there. Now, psychodynamic perspective, early childhood conscious and unconscious motives. So early experiences and unconscious drives shape the behavior and disorder. Okay. Uh, so what is that? A child growing with an critical parents might develop a fear of failure and become overly perfectionist later in life. So you see that a lot of children are controlled by their parents for each and everything. They say, "Don't do this, don't do that, stop doing it, come back, give it to her, whatever it is." So they become, they see all those things as normal, and they say that uh, uh, if you are doing this, you're going to have that, or you will face the consequences. So child thinks they are all a sequence and which has to be followed, and they become perfectionists and always decide no mistake, no mistake, no mistake. And that also causes maladaptive behavior or destructive behavior for themselves and others too. Now, recent theorists say that their concept is modern view focus on distorted interpersonal relationships. What will happen when two parents are fighting and child is in between them, or some or the other reason they always have some issues in the family, and they think that is the normal happening in the family, and they also adopt the same behavior. which will be very difficult for him or her to adjust in the society. So, a strained parent child relationship can contribute to maladaptive behavior like trust issues and social withdrawal. So, now let us jump into behavior perspective. Human behavior is learned and can be changed. As you all know that it is learned and can be changed. Behaviorism focuses on observable aspects of the behavior. Unacceptable behaviors can be unlearned. We have seen these things with the different psychologists, Skinner's dog, uh, Pavlov's dog, and so many experiments we have seen. You will get to know about them in the next slides. So children are seen relatively passive in their child development. Behavior is prioritized observable behavior over mental process. Animal research supported understanding human behavior. Behaviorism is applied in clinical and educational settings too. Behaviorism is effective in treating various disorders. Now let us try to understand them in depth. Behaviorist perspective. So what are the key concepts and examples of behaviorism? So human behavior is learned. What is that? So a person learns to overcome a fear of dogs by gradually exposing themselves to the friendly dogs. It's a systematic desensitization. See, if a child is feared with dog and is taken to the dog, which is very friendly, then slowly he will come out of that fear. Then later on, he will be with the dog and he can get away with his fear. Now, focus on observable aspect of the behavior. A teacher rewards a student with a gold star or any star or reward system for a good behavior, focusing on the visual action rather than the student's internal thoughts. So behavior is, they always say whatever is seen, that is counted. So internal, whatever is going, they are not bothered. They only say the physical behavior which is exhibited at the time. So they reinforce the good behavior. So unacceptable behaviors can be unlearned. A child who throws tantrums get a candy learns to stop when the parent consistently don't give in. Parent, they don't, if tantrums are continuous, parents stop, responding to that, and slowly they can even change child's behavior slowly. So similarly, child's passive as a passive in development, a child follows pattern of behavior they observe in the parent or caregiver, like mimicking speech or routine without much active decision making. As you all know, child child's first role model is parent. So if parent is perfect or close, friendly, then child learns friendliness. If it's anger, he will also show anger. So everything is copied from the parent. So that's how parents treat children. If you want your children to be good, treat them with love and affection. Otherwise, your choice, parents' choice. Now, behavior is perspective. Similar things with examples. Priority on observable behavior or mental process. So I think we have a lot of slides. Oh my God. Um, Priority on observable behavior or mental processes. A therapist tracks a client's improvement in quitting smoking based on reduced cigarette using rather than exploring deep thoughts about addiction. So he will focus on whether he's reducing it or not, rather than his thought process or whatever it is. So animal research supports understand human behavior, in which it says Pavlov's experiment with the dog salivating to a bell helped explain how humans associate stimuli with specific response. That is classical conditioning. So application in cultural and educational settings. In a classroom, teacher uses positive reinforcement like praises or rewards to encourage participation and learning. As I said, uh, you can even see, whenever child comes and tells something, teacher says, thank, very good, clapping, and, appreciating the child and giving a star, all these things, are right reward system. Effective in treating disorders. Behavioral therapy is used to help individuals with phobias by gradually exposing them to the feared objects or situations, exposure therapy, etc. As I told you, dog was an example of that I told you. Then behaviorist perspective, who was it was, J.B. Watson. What he said, founded behaviorism and emphasizing conditioning and processes, studying how fear response can be learned, such as, through his little Albert experiment was there, where a child is learned to fear with a white cat. Uh, so time is the constraint, so I can't go in depth with that. I try to give all the information, then later on we can discuss. So simplifying the all these explanations, behaviorism emerged as a simpler alternative for the Freudian theory, focusing on observable behavior rather than unconscious process. Whatever is seen, that has been described by the behaviorists, rather than Sigmund Freud, Freud's unconscious process and all these things. So explaining, habits like nail biting as learned behavior rather than deep psychological concepts. Okay. Then Ian Paula, what he said, learning through association. Dog salivating at the sound of the bell after associating with the food. Okay, it learned, association and learned, similarly, process, learned behavior weakens when the association stimulus was removed. When stimulus is removed, automatically association was slowly separated. Then it was unlearned. So dogs stop salivating to the bell when no food is followed over a time. So this is what, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, the negative punishment. So give to the dog, take from the dog. These are the method. This is the representation. Now behaviorist perspective, in the Skinner also, he with his operant conditioning, he said, learning through consequences, reinforcement and punishment. Now, teaching a child to clean their room by rewarding them with a treat, that is positive reinforcement. Now, similarly, uh, the same thing, positive reinforcement. Okay. So, key process of operant conditioning is that, reinforcement, increasing desired behavior. What the behavior which you want to increase, then it is reinforced with the reward. So, praising a student for completing homework increases consistent effect. Punishment, less consistent in changing behavior. That is, grounding a teenager might reduce that behavior temporarily, but it doesn't always stop in long term. So certain times, we may think, stopping the child for some time might reduce the behavior, but it is temporary, but doesn't always stop it in long term. So extinction concept, what is the concept of extinction? Behavior diminishes when reinforcement is removed. A dog stop digging, or carving for food when there are no treats are given. So this is the extinction process, or little Albert example what I was talking about. When there was a sound, child was feared. It is unconditioned response. Then a white rat was introduced to the child. He was not at all feared, and he was playing with the rat. Then the sound and rat at the time he was showed, and slowly it was reinforced with the sound with the rat. Then finally, whenever even sees the rat, he was feared of the rat. Similarly, it can be unconditioned too. A cognitive perspective. Time is running out. Okay. So cognitive perspective says, mental processor like perception, memory, and problem solving emerged against it is they started against behaviorism as they were neglecting the mental process. So core cognitive processes, attention, thinking, memory, and consciousness. Values, human adaptation, values cognitive ability and adaptability. What influenced Gestalt psychologists, they focused more on overall mental functioning rather than looking at the things separately, independently. So they said, look at what is happening, not just, at one aspect, look at all the aspects as a combined. So as a whole, they said. Okay. Then Tolman, he said, problem solving via hypothesis and testing. You simply can't test everything just like that. First, frame an hypothesis, then do proper research, then look into the depth and in-depth analysis. That is what it. Then PJ said, stages of cognitive developments. How this is this child at so and so age, he has to do this. The same task after certain age, he may see it differently. Then after later stages, they think analysis and problem solving changes as individual grows. So, what are the things involved in this schemas? Influence information process may cause distortion, maladaptive schemas linked to psychological disorder, and applications to CBT or cognitive therapy, that is, correcting inaccurate beliefs and explaining abnormal behavior and support interventions. Cognitive behavior perspective focuses on mental process. What is the concept here? It says cognitive perspective examines perception, memory, and problem solving. Then what are the emerging trends? Emergence. This is against the behaviorism. So concept developed as a reaction of behaviorism, neglect mental processes, solving puzzles and remembering shopping list, etc. These were the different tests, and they tested memory, perception, problem solving. There's so many puzzle solving like that. Then second one, while behaviorism focused on actions, cognitive psychology explored why we act like this, what is happening. So like analyzing thought patterns leading to procrastination. So person sleeping, why they are sleeping, why they are not working. So what is going behind the thought process? This is what they were checking. So in this, key cognitive process involve attention, that is focusing on conversation while ignoring background noises, thinking strategies to win a board game, then recalling past vacation when planning for a new trip. Consciousness, being aware of your emotions in stressful situations. So these are the key cognitive processes they evolved included. Influences gestalt psychology, as I said, if you look at as a whole, if these, you can see two triangles and three circles bisecting each other. Separately, it doesn't make it. So look at it as a whole, they said. So the concept emphasizes overall mental functioning. So what does it says? Recognizing patterns in ambiguous images like seeing a face in the cloud, etc. So Tolman said, concept focused on hypothesis and testing, a problem focused. Suppose you want a person want to unlock a struck door, different strategies they plan. If this doesn't key doesn't work, there is something will work. So they keep on trying with different keys. That is what they said. Teacher said, he outlined stages of cognitive development. As you see, child situationally, they work themselves and finally understand many things. So child learning object performance by realizing toy still existing even when hidden. In the child doesn't understand when the toy is hidden, they think it's gone, disappeared. But once they grow up, they'll understand toy is there, it is hidden. Then what are the schema process? Information process, schemas shape how we interpret information. Assume someone is trustworthy based on first impressions. So then, assume someone based on their first impressions. So many like maladaptive schemas, concepts can distort cognition and lead to psychological disorders. Believing I am not good enough, causing self-esteem issues. You look into the mirror, they always see that they are not good enough, or they are not happy, or for some reason they always see themselves they are not happy. Self-esteem issues are there. And similarly, applications cognitive therapy, concept aims to correct inaccurate beliefs. Someone thinking they like I'm always a fail. Build confidence. Look at this image. Person, somebody's support system will be there, which will support the individual to come out of the situation. Understanding abnormal behavior. It says, cognitive explanations are used for interventions, analyzing thought patterns and contributing to anxiety and development of strategies to overcome. Similarly, there's so many, whenever, as I said, looking at someone, you may see trustworthy in the first impression. So humanistic perspective says, positive aspects of human nature. Focus on self-actualization and individual growth. Then someone pursuing, passion of painting despite challenges, striving to reach their fullest potential is self-actualization. Then unique experiences and potential concept. It says, emphasizes personal growth through individual experiences. The student overcoming, personal struggles to achieve academic success by tapping into their resilience. So concept, Maslow's concept says, needs progress for basic, that is food and safety, to self-actualization, personal fulfillment. So artists who achieve stability in life, basic needs, and later focus on creating impactful art, self-actualization. Simple. So Carl Rogers on concept importance of aligning self-perception with ideal self. So you knowing about your abilities, qualities, self-worth, then you will have self-perception, then self-ideal, create a self, you can align yourself with the ideal self. So person starving to become a confident public speaker to match their ideal self-image. Now, existential perspective, it says, individuals' responsibility, taking ownership for the choice and actions, deciding to leave fulfilling job to pursue more meaningful career, then meaning in making, creating purpose and value in the life. Meaning and making means creating purpose and value in the life, finding meaning in volunteering to help others in community. Similarly, personal choice and self-determination, emphasizing autonomy in the life decisions. You make your own decisions. That's what it says. Choosing to study abroad to experience new culture and perspectives is also one of that. Humanistic existential perspective, inner experiences, addressing feelings and emotions neglected by traditional psychology. What is it? Reflecting deeply on emotions after major life event to better understanding oneself. Finding meaning for well-being, importance of meaning in the life for mental health. Someone rediscovering a sense of purpose by writing a uh, memory after retirement. Similarly, community culture, we are coming to the end. So I need a few more minutes. Yeah. So Socio-culture influences on the behavior, stress from social cultural factors. What does it mean? War, discrimination, and economic issues can cause psychological stresses. So now, if you ask about people in Ukraine and Gaza, what will they say? They children have a lot of trauma. They are going through a lot of trauma. Similarly, for 20, 30, decades, Kashmir people were suffering with a lot of trauma. Now, now individuals, came out of such situation. Now everybody is happy. But, the traumas will still be there. So, refugees developed PTSD, like traumatic due to the traumatic experience, social, cultural, impacting abnormal behavior. Yes, behavior is shaped by social norms and cultural pressures. Social stigmatization of mental illness is certain. Cultures may prevent individuals from seeking help. Similarly, the role of family, yeah, family structure and social conditions shape individual behavior. A child in a dysfunctional family with poor communication may struggle with the trust and the arguments are continuously there in the family, which not stable. Then what will happen? So many issues will have. That's what it say. Now, social culture, enmeshed family, when family overly close, uh, one room, there are 10 people are, then they'll hinder, independence is not there. There are relationship issues. An adult overly reliant in the family for decisions might struggle with self-sufficient. Lack of social support, isolation can lead to psychological issues like depression and societal labelness and role. Label can influence self-perception and behavior. And you have the example here, breaking societal norms, uh, deviating from norms may lead to being labeled as mentally ill. Someone expressing unconversational views may be judged or orchestrated by intensifying the stress and disturbed behavior. Uh, yeah. So with this chapter, I have tried to give in-depth with the examples. So to summarize this, various approaches like psychodynamic, behavioral, biological, and cognitive approaches will explain the maladaptive behavior. Then maladaptive behavior refers to mental health issues affecting thoughts, body, feeling, and behavior. Then theoretical perspective in abnormal psychology have evolved over time. Shift occurred from biological and moral explanation to focus on unconscious processes, then to behavior and cognitive behavioral views, and finally to social cultural perspective. The psychosocial viewpoint is integrated maladaptive theoretical perspectives too. Each perspective provides insight into the causes of abnormal behavior. So these are the important questions. Look at them. I think this chapter itself is very important. Go through it. Thank you so much for attending to today's online class. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.